long before ecology became the swan song of environmentalists throughout the world. The ancient South Asian heritage had provided a spacious spiritual home for environmental ideas. In the West, the term ecology was coined only in the latter half of the 19th century. Ecology originates from the Greek word oikos, which means home. But South Asia has been the center of debate and discussion about links between people and nature. Centuries ago, the Jain, Vedic and Buddhist traditions and values established the principles of ecological harmony. These principles were not prompted by doomsday theories or warnings of impending environmental disasters. The principles originated through the spiritual quest for the meaning and purpose of all life. The statements of the Buddha made him unexcelled as a sage and as the enlightened being who saw the interdependence of nature. He taught this precept through his teachings of love, understanding, justice, equity, and compassion. The Buddha pointed out that it was a great virtue to live in a good environment. The Buddha rejected the notion of humankind as the exclusive center of life and existence. He also rejected the selfish notion that man is the master of the universe.
If we look at the links between people and nature, during the Indus civilization in India, we know that people venerated trees and nature. Just before the Buddha, during the Vedic era, we know that people venerated rocks and nature. In the same manner, Buddhism has special links with nature. The Buddha was born in a park in Lumbini, in Nepal. He achieved enlightenment under a tree. He passed away in a park in Kusinara in northern India. The three most significant events of the Buddha, his birth, his enlightenment, and his death, took place in association with trees. It is not surprising, therefore, that the process of Buddhism is closely intertwined with nature.
Sustainable development is a key word in the lexicon of the environmental movement. The phrase is used to mean a development that meets the needs of the present without jeopardizing the ability of future generations to meet theirs. Public participation is the key to sustainability and is part and parcel of Buddhist ethics. The Buddha highlighted the importance of dialogue and people's participation. People should discuss matters with each other, especially matters of doctrine, he once said. This is sound advice for the development community. The Buddha admonished his followers to live a life of moderation and restraint. Wants should be reduced, desires curbed, and consumption kept within reasonable limits. Wealth creation should be for the service of people.
When Buddha achieved enlightenment, he had the option to isolate himself and remain in a jungle or in an area that was not inhabited by man. In contemporary Indian system, most of the saints and sages lived away from human society. But the Buddha decided that he should reside among men, look after their needs, guide them spiritually. His teaching is also dominated by this sense of service. On one occasion, he gathered his disciples and told them to walk around, go about for the benefit of man. In Pali, it reads this way: Charata bhikkave charikang bahujana hitaya bahujana sukhaya. O bhikkhus, go about, travel about for the benefit of men, for the good of men. He never asked them to remain in a temple and to look after their own salvation.
Buddha advised people to earn wealth righteously. He asked them to divide wealth into 4 parts. 1 part for consumption, 2 parts for investment in enterprises. The 4th part should be saved to protect people against future mishaps. 236 years before Christ, Buddhism was brought to Sri Lanka by Mahinda, son of Emperor Asoka. Arahant Mahinda first approached King Devanampiya Tissa when the king was hunting in a forest. To test whether the king was capable of grasping Buddhism, Arahant Mahinda posed him a series of questions about trees. Devanampiya Tissa became the first Buddhist king of Sri Lanka. Arahant Mahinda once advised the king, "O great king, the birds of the air and the beasts in the forest have equal rights to live and move about in any part of the land. You are only their guardian." Soon after Arahant Mahinda took up abode in Sri Lanka, he requested his sister to join him. Sanghamitha arrived bearing a sapling of the Bo tree under which the Buddha attained enlightenment. This was planted at Anuradhapura. It is the oldest authenticated tree in Sri Lanka. The Bo tree has a special place in the hearts and minds of people. These trees are conserved with care.
Throughout Sri Lanka's history, the Buddhist priests have been at the forefront of efforts to preserve and protect temple buildings and lands. To do this, they received the support of the kings. We know this for sure from the stone scriptures of King Mihindu IV. In one of the king's stone scriptures found at Mihintale, people have been ordered to stop destroying palm, coconut and tamarind trees. These trees are particularly found on mountain tops. From this we know that some of our kings were aware of the importance of tree cover to stop soil erosion.
During the 12th century AD, King Parakramabahu the Great put Buddhist concepts into practice. The king was the pioneer of sustainable development in Sri Lanka. He matched his massive development programs with innovative water conservation methods. The Sea of Parakrama, or Parakrama Samudraya, was his greatest irrigation feat. The king's dictum was, "Let not a single drop of water that falls on the land go into the sea without serving the people." The king built a massive network of irrigation canals, which today sustain some 50 square kilometers of land. The environmental situation in Sri Lanka today does not reflect the country's heritage. The emphasis on market forces, stress on short-term economic gains, and industrial practices that are not based on ethical values all combine to erode the precious natural resources of the land. Most factories dump wastes and emit hazardous fumes without any regard for people and the environment. Deforestation is rampant. Illegal felling of timber goes on unchecked. The gap between the rich and the poor is growing wider and wider. Yet all is not lost. There is still time for change. If the Buddhist ethic can be truly placed at the heart of economic policies, then economic growth can take place without destroying the environment. Conservation programs can also create jobs and put idle hands to work. Buddhism brings a new dimension into the environmental movement. Environmental discussions refer to two dimensions, the physical and the natural environments. Buddhism facilitates us to think about the environment, the inner values and attitudes of a person. Pollution emanates from an ignorant and polluted mind based on values which regard people and nature as objects for exploitation. Conservation takes place when people's minds and attitudes are based on values which highlight responsibilities towards humankind and nature. If the world heeds the teachings of the Buddha, there is no need for despair. Nations can achieve development without destruction.